Our district literacy intervention plan process is a year-long process. So we have various meetings throughout the year. We have instructional specialist meetings, we have principals meetings, we have directors meetings. And in most all of those meetings, we have discussions about what's working with our literacy intervention plan, what things we may need to look at for the next year's literacy intervention plan. We consider that our data gathering. So once we have our data, we will meet back together in the summer as a district team and start looking through the literacy intervention plan for the next year. So this year, for example, we met this summer, we looked at our plan, we made sure that we were ready for whatever changes that we wanted to make to it, and we were ready to submit that plan when the window opened. The communication of our literacy intervention plan is really an umbrella approach. So we start out at the district level, we make sure that we know about the literacy intervention plan, and then we start that communication process. Our administrators in our district are all trained on the literacy intervention plan. We also speak about the literacy intervention plan monthly at every meeting. Our link to our literacy intervention plan is embedded in many district documents. We also talk about the literacy intervention plan with our instructional specialist each month. We refer back to it constantly. We have a team of ELA specialists in our district, and those ELA specialists are trained on the literacy intervention plan, and their role as far as the school is to go back and deliver that information to each school, each teacher, each staff member, instructional assistants, anyone who may be working with students on interventions is going to be trained in that plan.
We have an early literacy specialist from NCDPI, Courtney Bauguess. So she delivers the LIP with us, and her team work on that LIP throughout the summer. And then she does get feedback from us and what do we think, what worked well. And then once it's finalized, she does share it out with us at our first meeting of the year before the school year gets started. And she very detailed goes over each item in the literacy intervention plan. And then I will roll it out to those teachers.
The literacy intervention plan at each school level is brought up in MTSS meetings, data team meetings, data days, many different areas each month. That literacy intervention plan is going to be discussed as a staff and with individual teachers.
The district and leadership share the literacy intervention plan expectations with us all the time. We talk about them in staff meetings, in our PLCs, in our MTSS meetings, and in discussions around the scheduling of different tutors and our own personal schedules. We talk about them during classroom observations and in thinking about student progress and data. We took some time in our PLC meetings to talk about the different parts and pieces of that literacy plan and how to use them, when to use them, things like that. And it helps too to have these group discussions about the literacy intervention plan and about student data, because it's not just me making that decision. We have a collaboration with professionals that are all agreeing on the intervention.
Having that manual that they can go to and pull from and know that these are the steps that I'm going to take makes the planning a little bit easier for teachers. They still plan their lessons out, but they have a manual to go to. They're not going to the internet and digging for different things to try to put in place. It's very systematic in the way of it's progressional. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade. So one thing that we put in place at the end of last year was I sent out a document and they had to put where their student was at in that intervention. So then going into the catch-up growth versus annual growth, it really resonated with me that we don't need to wait until BOY window closes to start with these interventions for students, that we can go to that document that the teacher before them had and say that they left off on Unit 1 of Foundations lesson 32, and they can go back there and pick up from where they left off. So we're bridging that gap of the annual growth versus catch-up growth. So they are a little bit more strategic about starting their interventions.
I use the literacy intervention plan weekly to determine whether students are making the growth that I would like to see, and if not, what steps I need to take based on our school expectations. The literacy intervention plan houses our assessment measures and checkpoints. It also has our data decision rules. These measures help us to evaluate student progress and determine which students are needing intervention and where those interventions and supports need to occur. So when we have collected our beginning of year data or data throughout the year, I am marking all of that information next to students and trying to sort and organize them based on both the area of need and the interventions maybe that they were receiving in the past. And the literacy intervention plan helps me to figure out what grouping students need to be in, their grouping sizes. It helps me to figure out where and which interventions to start with. So for example, with 4th and 5th graders, the majority of the intervention that I'm giving is fluency intervention. So in looking at the data that we've collected and comparing what the goals are for the beginning and end of the year, where we want students to be at the end of the year, and looking at kind of the typical classroom makeup, I'm using those data decision rules from within the literacy intervention plan to determine the frequency, the group size, what tier students need, and what intervention will best support them.
What we call the coaching cycle. And so what we do is we talk about, so let's say that they're having problems with phonics, and it is a 5th grade teacher who has not taught phonics in a very long time or don't even know where to begin with that. So then we go to literacy intervention plan. We'll say that foundations is a intervention that they can do. We sit down with the teacher. We go over each step of what foundations is delivering, but then I'm able to go in and model that for the teachers. So I'm able to sit down with a group. She's able to watch as well, and then go through what does that process look like. Also in younger grades, that we have brand new teachers who are just coming out of college, they may not know what that looks like either. So it may start with me going in and modeling a whole group foundations lesson or a whole group phonics lesson. That way they know the process and the procedures, and then it really addresses core then too, and then they can turn around and do it in their small group IE time.
Having the interventions already mapped out for tier 2 and tier 3 helps me to plan my interventions, especially because I still do unfortunately have some 4th and 5th graders who are needing specific phonics interventions. So having the intervention prepared for me means that I know that I'm giving the intervention to fidelity and I'm teaching it in a way that students are able to learn from. So since fluency is kind of more our area in 4th and 5th grade, I know that I've got that down in terms of teaching it in a small group, but phonics is a little bit more challenging for upper grades teachers. So being able to have the resources to draw from helps me to feel more prepared when I'm teaching that for 4th and 5th graders.
As a team, talk about the plan and what we can prescribe those students, and then our principals follow up on that by going into the classrooms. They are present during those intervention groups and walking around and making sure that teachers are using them, not only using them, but using them to fidelity. One Wednesday a month, we have MTSS meetings, and I lead those MTSS meetings along with the principal. The principal is sitting right beside of us during those meetings, but she really allows me to bring it back to data and bring it back to, well, what can we do with this information within our school? She really supports me and say, well, what does the literacy intervention plan say?
One of the most challenging components of the literacy intervention plan in our district originally was the why behind the literacy intervention plan. When we first rolled out the LIP, we had teachers that didn't understand the why behind it. We had district leaders that didn't understand the why behind it. So we worked really hard to make sure that we have gathered research and information and not only trained our teachers in how to use the literacy intervention plan, but also the why behind it. We want equity for our students. We want to reduce that cognitive overload for teachers and students. We want to make sure that the research-based interventions are what we're providing to our students. So really incorporating the why in our trainings and all of our district meetings has been really important in addressing that challenge. We have seen a lot of benefits from utilizing the literacy intervention plan in our district. The number one benefit is student equity. So if we have students at one school who are receiving an intervention and they move to another school in our district, they're going to have the same opportunities at any school in our district. The other ways that it's really supported our literacy work is that it's given teachers a plan and resources that they can use. We also have seen the benefit of teacher collaboration, teachers speaking the same language about interventions and the process, and then also parent conversations. It's much easier for teachers to talk about what we're doing for students, and those parents are going to hear that same language in our district.
The literacy intervention plan has cut down my amount of personal planning immensely. Having all of that at my fingertips really helps me to be able to get started quickly, because the school has all of the resources and materials readily available, and because I don't have to spend time finding interventions, especially research-based interventions. Since those things are already laid out for me, I know that I can access them quickly and easily, and I know that students in the classroom next door to mine will also be getting the same high-quality interventions. Also, being able to talk about some of these areas with additional professionals within the building means that we are able to meet students at their needs wherever that may be. So having the literacy intervention plan doesn't only support me in helping students, but it also supports the tutors that are in my classroom, the teachers' assistants, and the special area instruction that they're getting.
Our data is steadily increasing when we look at our phonics and our phonemic awareness, which is a direct correlation to being able to provide students what they need through the help of that literacy intervention plan.